Though each god engine is considered a massive game changer on the battlefield, Titans generally fall into one of three main grades based on their size and power. From smallest to biggest, the grades are Scout Titans, Battle Titans, and the colossal Emperor Titans. Each grade contains multiple classes, tailored for different battlefield roles and doctrines. Scout Titans, as the name implies, are commonly used for reconnaissance by the Titan Legion. They are smaller than the higher grades, but that affords them more agility. They move ahead of heavier engines to observe, harass, or strike with speed that borders on the unseemly for something that weighs hundreds of tons. At the very bottom of the Titan size hierarchy sits the Rapier Scout Titan, the smallest known class of Imperial God engine. To the average person, this is still a walking tower of steel, but compared to its towering kin, the Rapier would be practically dainty. That is, if we actually knew what it looks like. No official model or image of the Rapier exists, and lore references are sparse and fleeting. It was mentioned in the Horus Heresy novel Titan Death in passing as a Titan scout engine that's lighter and swifter than even a Warhound class. It was also mentioned to be a rare sight during the Horus Heresy, so who knows if any Rapier Scout Titans even still exist in the 42nd millennium. The Rapier's obscurity isn't unique. Across the long, contradictory history of Warhammer 40,000, many Titan classes exist only as names hinted at in novels. Somewhere in the galaxy, entire legions may still field these machines, assuming anyone remembers how to build them. The Adeptus Mechanicus certainly isn't telling. From one of the least known Titans to one of the most popular, the Warhound Scout Titan is the smallest commonly deployed Titan class, standing only 14 meters. It's the one most people picture when they think of a light Titan. The Warhound is built for speed, aggression, and relentless forward pressure. Warhounds operate in packs of two, where their mobility becomes a weapon in its own right. They dart through ruined cityscapes, flank slower engines, and exploit gaps in enemy lines. While the heavier Titans trade apocalyptic broadsides from kilometers away, the Warhounds would have already made it into the enemy backyard, kicking over fortresses and reminding their enemies that no cover is safe. Despite their scout designation, you'd only consider Warhounds lightly armored when comparing them to other Titans. Each Warhound mounts two primary weapons, chosen from a brutal arsenal. Common armaments include the Turbo Laser Destructor for long-range armor killing, the Plasma Blast Gun for armor-melting devastation, and the Vulcan Mega Bolter, which turns infantry formations into infantry formations with a lot more holes in them. Under the Warhound Titan are several subclasses, each tuned for a slightly different flavor of destruction. The Wolf class is the archetypal hunter, optimized for chasing down targets, often paired with high-powered energy weapons to effectively bring down heavier prey. Mastiff class Warhounds trade a bit of armor for even more speed, since their primary function is to hit the enemy from behind and then run back to cover. They're also lighter armed than the other subclasses, further emphasizing their hit-and-run nature. The Jackal class's role, similar to the Mastiff class, is to hit and retreat. The main difference is that the Jackal class sports more void shields, so they can conduct riskier missions and get closer to enemy lines, while still being able to go back to safety while being shot at. A single Warhound won't win a straight duel with a Warlord, but it isn't supposed to. Its role is to harass, isolate, and finish off wounded prey. Think of it like a very large, very angry wolf with void shields, a plasma heart, and a crew of priests chanting inside its skull. It sends the message that Scout in the Imperium still means catastrophically armed. The direwolf Heavy Scout Titan, because the other Scout Titans weren't deadly enough, apparently. Introduced during the Horus Heresy era, the direwolf bridges the gap between the Warhound Scout and Battle Titans, sacrificing some of the Warhound's pack-hunting agility in exchange for raw, predatory firepower. Why does a Scout Titan need to be slower and have heavy firepower, you ask? Well, because it's cool. The direwolf sports a pintle-mounted Ardex Defensor Mauler bolt cannons on each arm, which produce bolts powerful enough to penetrate enemy knights and other titans. As impressive as its arm-mounted weapons are, the direwolf is built around a single, massive carapace-mounted cannon. Its entire chassis is designed to support and stabilize a weapon normally reserved for much larger engines. The most infamous of these is the neutron laser, a terrifying device that doesn't just blast holes through armor, but also sends out an EMP wave on contact, frying any electronic machinery nearby. Another option for the torso-mounted main weapon is the volcano cannon, a laser cannon so massive that it is designed to be mounted on battle-grade titans and larger machines. This thing is so destructive that its main targets are not only enemy titans, but minor hive cities. These armaments turn the direwolf into a roaming executioner, stalking ahead of the main titan battle group to neutralize high-value targets before they can bring their own guns to bear. Unlike warhounds, direwolves can be sent to operate alone. They are hunters in the truest sense, deadly and terrifyingly precise. Their void shields are stronger, their armor thicker, and their machine spirits far more temperamental. In Legion doctrine, direwolves are often used to decapitate enemy titan formations. They identify command engines or shield-bearing anchors and obliterate them in a single, catastrophic strike. Once the prey is wounded or disorientated, warhounds surge in and battle titans follow to finish the kill. If warhounds are wolves, then you can think of the direwolf as the alpha. Larger, meaner, and drop-shipping a weapon that makes even veteran princeps nervous. Beyond the swift and predatory scout titans stands the true pillars of a titan legion, the battle titans. These engines form the core of any god-machine battle group, bringing overwhelming firepower, layered void shields, and a battlefield presence that reshapes entire wars, if not entire worlds. They are designed not merely to hunt, but to dominate, to hold ground, break enemy formations, and duel rival god engines in clashes that register on seismographs. Battle titans are admittedly slower than scouts, but infinitely more enduring. They are fortresses that walk and cathedrals that kill. They are the will of the Omnissiah made metal. The Reaver Battle Titan stands in the middle ground between the nimble scouts and the towering warlords, blending mobility and firepower into this ancient, brutal war engine. This is where Titan warfare stops being fast and clever and starts being loud and final. Taller and broader than any scout titan, the Reaver stands about 25 meters tall and is protected by 4 void shield generators and armor thick enough to shrug off weapons that would obliterate entire regiments. It is still the most agile battle titan that we know of, and it kind of needs to be. The main weakness of the Reaver is its plasma reactor's exposed cooling bars to the rear of the Titan, so being able to turn around quickly and keep its front facing the enemy is a must. This makes it ideal for frontline assaults, where it knows where the enemy will be coming from, and all it has to do is charge ahead and unleash hell. On the other hand, should a Reaver find itself in urban warfare or close combat against faster foes, well, it better hope it has allies watching its back. For their armaments, Reavers typically mount 2 medium Titan-grade weapons on their arms and 1 carapace-mounted system. Their arm-mounted options are a parade of excess. The aforementioned Titan-killing volcano cannon, Gatling blasters that spit storms of shells to obliterate hordes of infantry and vehicles, melter cannons that turn bunkers into molten slag, laser blasters for precision annihilation, and even some brutal melee options like Titan-grade power fists or chain fists, because it's Warhammer 40k, of course they do. On the carapace, Reavers often carry an Apocalypse missile launcher, essentially a portable extinction event, or a turbo laser destructor for long-range fire support, though they have a plethora of other fun options like the Plasma Blast Gun, Vulcan Megabolter, or Volkite Eradicator. In battle, One of the Reaver's roles is to be close fire support for Imperial infantry and armor. They usually arm themselves with close combat and rapid fire weaponry when in this role, to make sure their allies can survive and march forward. However, when in a mana pool with several other Titans of different classes, Reavers usually take on either a front-line or long-range support role. If there are multiple Reavers in the mana pool, some may choose one role over the other. Reaver Titans are some of the oldest and proudest in the Mechanicus' arsenal, but despite its age though, the Reaver is still a force to be reckoned with in any battlefield. They've helped mankind conquer the stars for tens of thousands of years, and the enemies of man know to fear it. Between the sizes of the well-documented Reaver and Warbringer Nemesis classes exist a tier of battle titans that we know little of, classes that are only mentioned once or twice in 40k novels and never given an official model, much like the Rapier Scout Titan. While they're mostly shrouded in mystery, it's still worth mentioning what little we do know about them. The name Komodo is merely a footnote in Horus Heresy Book 5, Tempest, where it was noted to be a rare Titan chassis model alongside several others, and that is, unfortunately, literally all we know about it. The Punisher and Executor classes participated in the War of the Beast against the Orcs in Ullanor in the 32nd millennium. Pretty much nothing else is known about the two of these, except for the interesting fact that the Punisher was apparently a three-legged battle titan. It would be so interesting to see a Warhammer 40k version of the AT-AP from Star Wars, but alas, some brief mentions is all we've got so far. The Apocalypse class was mentioned alongside the Komodo class in Tempest, and was mentioned only once more in Horus Heresy Book 9, Crusade. All we really know is that it's a rare battle titan class, and that only the Princeps with the most battle honors and kill markers were allowed to pilot it. The Carnivore class was present during the biggest Titan battle in Imperial history, the aptly named Titan Death. They were used by Legio Ataris, a legion known for highly aggressive tactics that preferred to use smaller yet faster battle titans like the Reaver. So we can assume that the Carnivore class is at least somewhat similar in role to the Reaver. Once again, the Mirage class was only mentioned in passing in Horus Heresy Book 5 Tempest. We know that a legion called Legio Praesagius had access to them, but as to their appearance or roles, your guess is as good as ours. What unites these classes is absence. They have no modern models, no detailed schematics, and little if any lore. Like the Rapier, they exist as names in the margins of history. They might still be active today, or they might not. Who's to say, except the Emperor and Games Workshop themselves? The Warbringer Nemesis is a class designed to excel at long-range support, rather than chasing down targets or fighting on the front lines, though it's also not uncommon to see one on the front lines. The Imperium is anything but efficient. Technically, the Warbringer Nemesis is a sub-variation of the Warbringer class Battle Titan, but it's so popular that it's practically the only type of Warbringer you're ever likely to see in battle. Visually speaking, the Warbringer Nemesis looks like a slightly smaller Warlord Titan, though its height is unspecified. Also, it has a really massive gun on its back. Said gun is a defining feature of the Warbringer, the Nemesis Quake Cannon, named after its jaw-dropping ability to create localized earthquakes upon impact. The Quake Cannon destabilizes the ground itself, collapses fortifications, topples titans, and turns defensive lines into smoking craters. On its arms, it fields the same medium-sized Titan weaponry that Reavers do, which aren't as big and powerful as the options you'd find in Warlord or Emperor Titans, but they'll do the job of defending the Warbringer as it brings its intended target down the sights of its Quake Cannon. But just in case you think it's not enough, the Warbringer also fields several weapon systems around its carapace, usually in the form of 3 Ardex Defense and Mauler Bolt cannons, and 2 Anvilus Pattern Defense batteries. Another thing that makes Warbringer Nemesis Titans so interesting is their restless machine spirits. They've been known to lock onto targets before the Princeps and Moderati have even noticed them. Is it dangerous AI that borders on the heretical? Maybe, but bordering on the heretical is the Mechanicus in a nutshell. All in all, the Nemesis is a reminder that Titan warfare isn't just about duels, it's about shaping the battlefield itself. A single Warbringer can flatten hive spires, erase trench networks, and change geography as easily as a 6-year-old in Minecraft. Why hunt your enemies when you can delete the very ground they're standing on? The Warlord Titan is the backbone of any Titan Legion, an archetypal god engine, towering and indomitable. This is the Titan most often depicted striding through firestorms, banners streaming, and guns blazing. The average Warlord Titan is said to be about 33 meters tall, though records and depictions fluctuate wildly. Warlords are built for dominance, with immense void shield arrays, near impenetrable armor, and multiple macro weapon hardpoints. They are designed to fight and win prolonged engagements, whether it's against Xenos, Hordes, or other god engines. A Warlord typically mounts 2 arm weapons and a pair of carapace systems located above where its shoulders are, allowing it to engage multiple targets of varying levels of armor. Typically, the arms are mounted with a volcano cannon on one side and a Gatling blaster on the other, with 2 double-barreled turbo laser destructors mounted on its carapace. Of course, like with all other Titans, these weapons can be replaced to fit the Titan's needs, or, in the Warlord's case, to fit the role of its specific pattern or subclass. The popularity of this Titan class has spawned multiple variations, with different characteristics and preferences in battle. The most well-known patterns are as follows. The Mars Alpha pattern is the most widespread and recognizable pattern. As the name implies, this pattern is forged on the Mechanicus' home planet and is worshipped as a tool of the Omnissiah. It features the classic design and standard weapon layout. It is the baseline Warlord, reliable, adaptable, and endlessly customizable. The Mars Beta pattern, though less common than its Alpha brother, is known to be a more ferocious machine of war. Literally, its machine spirit is said to be far more wild and aggressive than other Warlord Titan patterns, which requires the Princeps and Moderatus with the strongest wills to pilot it. The Lucius Alpha pattern is produced by the Forge World Lucius, one of the most successful Forge Worlds in the Imperium apart from Mars itself. The impressive quality of the Lucius pattern is comparable even to the Mars pattern, and many of its parts are even compatible with the Mars patterns. The Proximus pattern is one of the lesser-known patterns, produced from the Forge World Proximus. Not much is known about its specs, but it does seem to require more moderati than the typical Warlord, so it might not be as efficient as one. Then, there's the Warlord Sinister class Psi Titan, which some would consider deserves to be in a class of its own. Psi Titans, as the name implies, make use of psychic weapons of mass annihilation. Said to be created with the help of the Emperor himself during the Great Crusade, these extremely rare engines are exclusively fielded by a Titan Legion known as the Ordo Sinister and use forcefully bound psykers to power their psychic weaponry. The Princeps of a Psi Titan must be a psychic blank to make sure he isn't driven insane or outright killed by the unstable psykers surrounding him. The need for a blank Princeps also explains the rarity of Psi Titans. To be precise, less than 1 in 10 million people will ever be fit to become a Titan Princeps, and less than 1 in a billion people are blanks. So to be qualified to be a Princeps while simultaneously being a blank is something that's practically unheard of, even in all the vastness of the Imperium. The Psi Titan's primary weapon, the Sinistraminus Tenebrae, dubbed the Psi Cannon, channels the immense warp energies drawn from the suffering psykers within the Titan to tear holes in reality that destroy anything in its path. If that somehow isn't enough, Psi Titans can also choose to equip any other traditional armaments a Warlord-class Titan can. Other than its weapons, Psi Titans have also been shown to exhibit extraordinary abilities. They can spread waves of fear that can cause their enemies to panic and flee. They can have the ability to psychokinetically move objects, and sometimes they can even mess with time itself and reverse any damage the Psi Titan may have suffered. And honestly, That's just scratching the surface of what these god engines can do. The Psi Titan's capacity for destruction is limited only by its extremely small numbers, which might be for the better, since a Psi Titan's highly unstable powers can just as easily erase its allies' souls as they can its enemies. As mentioned above, other than patterns, Warlords also feature many doctrinal subclasses. These typically dictate the role or combat speciality of a Warlord. The Deathbringer is the most common and diverse subclass, equipped to battle at any range against almost any enemy type, basically the jack-of-all-trades of Warlord Titans. The Eclipse is a lighter version of the Deathbringer. It's basically just easier and cheaper to produce at the expense of lesser firepower. They can help support Reavers on the front lines if necessary. The Night Gaunt is the melee expert of the Warlord family. One or both of its arm-mounted weapons will be a Titan-grade close combat weapon, like a Titan Power Saw or an Ariok Power Claw. The Nemesis subclass, similar to the Warbringer Nemesis Titan, leans into long-range devastation and Titan hunting. In battle, Warlord Titans lead their maniple into the fray. They draw enemy fire and shatter opposing Titans in brutal duels that can last hours. Their presence alone alters strategy, as entire campaigns may be planned around the movement of a single engine. The Warmaster Heavy Battle Titan is a relatively recent addition to the Imperium's God-Machine hierarchy, and by relatively recent, I mean it was unveiled during the latter days of the Horus Heresy, which was more than 10,000 years ago. Sharing a name with the title of the Great Traitor Horus Lupercal, the Warmaster Titan can coincidentally also be seen as a symbol of betrayal to the Emperor by the Tech Priests of Mars. This Titan class was developed in secret, hidden from the Master of Mankind, and when it was revealed, it was to aid his fallen son Horus. Unfortunately for the Emperor, the Titan Legion, known as Legio Mortis, had sided with Horus, and it was they who had awakened this fearsome new Titan class, which led to the almost complete destruction of the Loyalist Mechanicum on Mars. The Warmaster Titan is taller than even the Warlord Battle Titan, standing at 41 meters, and carries enough firepower to engage multiple enemy engines while simultaneously obliterating entire formations of lesser troops. A Warmaster often mounts two massive Caesarian-class plasma destructors on its arms that can melt even the most heavily armored targets. On top of the massive carapace lies 4 autocannons and a Revelator missile launcher that is effective against Titans, other vehicles, and even heavily armored fortifications. Its shoulders house 2 turbo laser destructors that can be replaced with most other medium-sized Titan-grade weaponry, and for any brazen infantry that would dare go up close to the Warmaster, its knees house twin-linked las cannons, making sure nowhere is safe. For defense, the Warmaster Titan has 7 Void Shield generators and 6 Servitor Clades that can commence repairs on the Princeps orders. Though the Warmaster class started as a weapon of the traitors, it has since seen use in Loyalist hands as well, notably during the siege of Taravoa Nor, where it helped defend an evacuating Forge Fane from traitor forces. Its size doesn't quite match up to an Emperor Titan, but it was enough to bring Mars to its knees. Need anyone say more? Similar in build and stature, the Warmaster Iconoclast is a more violent variant of the Warmaster. Its primary role is to serve as a Forge World's last line of defense. Only in a Forge World's darkest hours is it allowed to unleash the wrath of the Warmaster Iconoclast hidden within its depths, if it even has one to begin with. Its armaments skew toward aggression, boasting massive melee implements like the Desolator Chainsword or Cryer Siege Drill, designed to tear apart anyone and anything that dares threaten its Forge World. For guns, the Iconoclast also has a Cruciator Gatling array and 2 medium Titan-grade weapons mounted on its shoulders. And yet, despite all that deadly weaponry, the Iconoclast's biggest tool for destruction is its machine spirit. Known for their unhinged bloodlust, Iconoclast machine spirits almost drag their Princeps and their crew to the hottest points in battle, where they can let loose and eradicate anything in sight. As such, Only the most stable and mentally sound princeps are allowed anywhere near an iconoclast cockpit. The iconoclast is a living declaration of contempt, proof that even god engines can learn to hate. At the summit of the Collegia Titanica stands the Emperor-grade Titans, literal mobile fortresses, religious icons, and assault platforms all rolled into one. Their sizes are pretty inconsistent throughout 40k's various novels and pieces of media, but they're clearly bigger than any battle titan, so they're at least 50 meters tall. These god machines are obviously nowhere near as agile as scout and battle-grade titans, but they make up for it with overwhelming amounts of firepower and insurmountable layers of void shields. Only two classes of Emperor Titans are known to us, the Imperator and the Warmonger, and both are so rare that any appearance of these divine machines is remembered for millennia. The Imperator class Titan is the slightly more common class of Emperor Titan. To simply call it tall or big is a disservice. It's a marvel of architecture and engineering. An Imperator often bears an entire cathedral complex upon its carapace, complete with spires, shrines, weapon emplacements, and a resident garrison of troops, making it a walking army in the most literal sense. On one arm, the Imperator can carry a Hellstorm cannon, a weapon so devastating that it can tear through void shields of a Warlord Titan in just one volley. The other hand can carry another Hellstorm cannon, or a Plasma Annihilator, one of the biggest land-based plasma weapons, and is yet another weapon capable of turning other Titan-level threats into non-issues. Glowing blue non-issues, that is. Additionally, its carapace houses 6 more Titan-grade weapons for any possible threat imaginable. If an enemy somehow lives long enough to return fire, the Imperator carries an astonishing 12 void shield generators, so good luck getting through that. On the battlefield, the Imperator serves as a general-purpose assault platform, advancing slowly and inevitably. Entire armies maneuver around it. Cities die or bow down to its shadow. It can duel enemy god machines and provide fire support farther than any conventional artillery can. Destroying one is a campaign in itself, often requiring sacrifices measured in regiments and decades. The rarer Warmonger-class Titan is an engine specialized for long-range fire support, even more so than the Imperator. Still Emperor-grade in scale, but focused even more heavily on siege warfare. It sacrifices some of the Imperator's frontline capabilities for enhanced firing arcs, denser weapon clustering, and a greater range of influence on the battlefield. To deliver the Omnissiah's judgment from afar, the Warmonger makes use of Doomstrike missile launchers and Vengeance cannons. Of course, being sniped from several countries away is annoying, so enemies will likely prioritize the Warmonger and send tactical air support to deal with it. Unfortunately for them, the Warmonger is also armed with multiple anti-air defenses just for that eventuality. Both the Imperator and Warmonger are moving shrines to the Omnissiah's dominion. Both exist beyond conventional tactics. Their arrival marks the point where the enemies of man stop worrying about objectives and start worrying about survival. The final Imperial Titan on this list was a one-of-a-kind model that was discovered in the Forge World of Caeronia by the Grey Knights in the 41st millennium. Unlike all the other Imperial Titans, the Castigator was not piloted by a princeps and a crew of moderati and servitors. Instead, it was a fully autonomous machine controlled by AI from humanity's dark age of technology. The Castigator is also known as the Father of Titans, and, if its own claims are to be believed, it was the first Titan ever built, and all later Imperial patterns, however rudimentary, try to copy or match the quality of its design. This claim was supported by its standard template construct database, also found on Caeronia. Take all of that with a grain of salt though, because the Castigator was later found to be possessed by a demon, so any information coming from it and its database can only be trusted as far as you can throw it. And I'm just guessing, but you probably can't throw the Father of Titans very far. What is clear is that the castigator stood taller than even Emperor-grade Titans, though by how much is unknown. It also featured a unique head placement that was above its shoulders like a Gundam. It pioneered technologies now lost to time, like the rapid self-repair routines and a synthetic muscle-like locomotive system that gave it a surprisingly graceful gait for something that massive. Its weapons reportedly included a non-specific arm-mounted melee weapon and a super-heavy multi-barrel cannon that fired demons, a result of its AI's connection with Chaos. The castigator was ultimately destroyed by the Grey Knights after discovering its corruption. However, there are rumors that the Mechanicus managed to salvage fragments of his STC, so who knows, maybe the castigator is slowly being rebuilt in the dark recesses of some forge world on the edges of the galaxy. When Imperial Titan legions turned during the Horus Heresy, the machines they possessed turned with them. These titans, twisted by centuries of exposure to the warp and the influence of the ruinous powers, became Chaos Titans, engines of war that blur the line between machine and demon. The machine's spirits and crews are now demon-possessed. Their chassis mutated to aesthetically match whichever Chaos god they're aligned with, and sometimes they even develop mysterious abilities lent to them by the dark deities. They are mostly not new classes in their own right, but simply corrupted versions of familiar Imperial designs, sometimes reclassified by the Imperium to mark their damnation. Technically, the castigator can be classified as a Chaos Titan, but that was a unique case. Here we'll discuss some of the more normal Chaos Titans, if you could ever call them that. Feral class Titans are the corrupted versions of Warhound Scout Titans, once proud hunters of the Imperium, now used by traitor legions for the same tactical scouting and flanking roles. Corrupted Reavers are renamed the Ravager class Battle Titan. These powerful machines are sometimes treated as deities by lesser chaos beings, who make sacrifices to them, fueling the demonic energies within them. Corrupted Warlord Titans are simply called Chaos Warlord Titans. One thing new about them is that they get 4 new variations depending on which ruinous power they serve. The Bannerlord for Khorne, Plague Lord for Nurgle, Pain Lord for Slaanesh, and Warp Lord for Tzeentch. As glorious as they are, even Emperor Titans can fall to ruinous powers and become Chaos Emperor Titans. The power they wield makes them highly attractive to more powerful chaos beings, and so most of them are possessed by greater demons. They appear only when chaos takes a particular interest in a world and desperately wants it for themselves. While all the Chaos Titans so far have simply been corrupted versions of pre-existing Imperial designs, there are seemingly a few Chaos Titans that are completely unique to the ruinous powers, specifically Slaanesh. The Lord of Excess has 2 scout-grade demon engines that stand out for their speed, ferocity, and decadent lethality. The Subjugator and Questor Scout Titans. The warped carapaces are surrounded by a shifting, shimmering aura, known as the glamour of Slaanesh, that distorts reality and makes them hard to locate and target by traditional sensors. Firstly, the Subjugator Scout Titan functions more like a corrupted Warhound. It races ahead of the main force to harass enemy artillery and soft targets. Armed with psi pulse generators that fire off condensed psychic energy to punch through thick armor, and Hellslicer battle claws for shredding foes in close range, the Subjugator revels in inflicting agony as it hunts down high-priority targets to sow chaos among the enemy ranks. The Questor Scout Titan shares most of the speed of its sibling, but trades some of it for heftier armor. Its carapace features spread-out arms equipped with rapid-firing Tormentor cannons for shredding infantry. 2 powerful las cannons, one on its head and another slung between the legs, are meant to deal with more heavily armed targets. Both variants mimic the uncanny grace and speed common to the Prince of Pleasure's demonettes, as well as embody his love for sensory overload and ruin. These Chaos Titans are deadly, unpredictable, and terrifying to behold on the battlefield. You might imagine that the name Titan is a designation used exclusively on the towering mech walkers fueled by the Mechanicus, and, by extension, the Dark Mechanicum that fell to Chaos worship. However, the Imperium itself considers any large mech of similar scale to their god engines as a Titan. We'll take a short dive into them as well, but if you want separate videos that focus more on these Xenos Titans, be sure to let us know. In the brutal, ramshackle world of Orc engineering, if a thing feels wrong, just make it bigger. Gargants and their kin are the Orcs' answer to Imperial Titans, massive walking avatars of the red-fisted might of Gork and Mork that stomp battlefields and unload Daka until everything explodes. Their construction, like most things Orcish, is ridiculous by human standard. Supposedly, big mech Orcs receive a vision from one of their gods, Gork or Mork, showing them a badass giant robot. They then set out to build that robot out of whatever scraps of metal they could find, and apparently their enthusiasm is literally contagious to other big mech Orcs and will soon lead to the construction of entire armies worth of gargants. From the words of the great Orc Toddaward, it just works. At the base of the Orc super heavy hierarchy are Stompers, ramshackle walkers, roughly equivalent in size to the Imperial Warhound or Reaver Titan classes. A Stomper is armed with everything, from def cannons and super gattlers to super rockets and big shooters. Often crewed by a mob of Orc boys and grots, a Stomper charging forward with a mega chopper or some other crude close combat weapon in hand is something to both marvel at and be terrified by. Next in line are the standard gargants, the Orc equivalent of the Imperium's battle-grade Titans. Gargants embody Orc creativity run wild. Each one is unique, bolted together with random metal plates and packed with seemingly limitless guns and chopper weapons. They serve as idols of the Orc gods and are terrifying engines of destruction in their own right. At the top of this green tower, the Mega Gargants, rare, enormous war machines comparable in size to Emperor-grade Imperial Titans. Unlike other Gargants that walk, Mega Gargants are often tracked behemoths, bristling with a wide variety of weapons. They are lethal symbols of the war, inspiring Orcs and crushing foes underfoot. Similar to Imperial Titans, Orc Gargants also include different variations, one of them being the Goth Claw Stomper, a variation of the Stomper that replaces its death cannon with two big claws, making the contraption deadlier in close quarters. In Orc society, becoming bigger and louder is the ultimate goal, and building bigger and louder machines is just a means to an end. Gargants epitomize that philosophy to a T, with gigantic metal carapaces and deafening explosions. The elegant ghost-like war machines of the craft world Aeldari are a stark contrast to the lumbering behemoths fielded by the Imperium. Built of wraithbone and guided by the spirits of the dead along with its living crew, Aeldari Titans blend fluid grace with lethal precision, weaving through a battlefield like dancers through the fire. The pilots are extremely rare Eldar twins or triplets raised to form a special bond with their Titan from birth. Though for smaller Titans, each machine will only require one sibling, with the other twin piloting another Titan working in tandem with the first. The inherent bond between these siblings and their engines enhances their capability to control their Titan, allowing for extremely fine motor control that is practically unachievable for the Titans of other races. At the smallest grade are the Revenant Scout Titans, the Aeldari equivalent to the Imperial Scout grade Titans. These slender walkers are remarkably agile, equipped with powerful jump jets that let them leap over terrain in a single bound, and an image-distorting hollow field that confounds enemy targeting arrays. Revenants are typically armed with pulsars or sonic lances for devastating energy strikes, and a shoulder-mounted plasma missile launcher for anti-infantry support. Larger and more potent are the Phantom Titans, the Aeldari's answer to the Imperium's battle-grade Titans. They field weapons such as twin pulsars, distortion cannons, or even the elegant power glaive. These weapons aren't as loud or earth-rattling as the Imperium's Titan-grade weaponry. Rather, they focus on placing well-aimed attacks on the enemy's weak points, taking them down with as little effort as possible. Similar to Revenants, they rely on hollow fields rather than void shields for defense. These engines advance swiftly, striking hard, then vanishing like phantoms. The rarest of the known Eldar Titans is the Warlock Titan, a variation of the Phantom Titan that leans more on psychic mastery rather than martial prowess. Their wraithbone cores contain the spirits of their race's most psychically gifted individuals, the Farseers and Warlocks of the Eldar. Their psychic mastery grants them precognitive insight and the ability to twist the fortunes of battle. This allows them to determine the perfect time and place to launch an attack, and in some cases, tug on the threads of fate to make them more likely to win. In practice, this makes their cannon shots and weapon strikes seemingly bend to hit the enemy. Yep, space feng shui is a thing in Warhammer 40k. For their arsenals, Warlocks wield the baffling Titan-grade Psychic Lance, which can broadcast psychic waves that outright remove the aggression of living things in the targeted area. Alternatively, it can also amplify the psychic waves to inject agony into the minds of its targets. Then, while the enemy is disorientated, the Warlock Titan can finish them off with twin missile launchers, pulsars, or power fists. In the ravenous swarms of the Tyranid hive fleets, few creatures inspire as much dread as the colossal biotitans. These gargantuan bioforms are designed to counter the super-heavy war engines of other galactic powers, leading Tyranid assaults with primal ferocity and organic weaponry that blends monstrous biology with tactical lethality. The most iconic is the Hierophant Biotitan, the largest shock assault bioform encountered by the Imperium. Though varying in size from specimen to specimen, they average at roughly the height of Imperial Scout-grade Titans, though that might not be a fair-size comparison, since Hierophants are generally seemingly far wider and longer than they are tall. Hierophants carry gigantic biocannons, massive claws, and razor-shaped blades, though, like all Tyranid bioforms, they are highly adaptable, and their arsenal can change to whatever the hive mind deems necessary. The thick, chitinous armor sheds noxious, toxic spores and absorbs tremendous punishment before they smash into enemy lines, tearing apart vehicles, infantry, and even other titans. The Harridan is the Tyranid's largest flying bioform, not counting the various spacefaring bioships. Some in the Imperium speculate that they may have been adapted from aerial warrior strains. With vast, leathery wings and a wingspan that can eclipse their prey, Harridans rain death from above. They strike with high-velocity biocannons and rip massive claws through armor, swooping on targets in a manner more akin to draconic predators than typical ground-bound war engines. They can also spawn or carry gargoyles, lesser Tyranid bioforms that are nonetheless deadly to the unfortunate souls below. The Dactylus Biotitan specializes in long-range, organic bombardment. They look to be evolved forms of the Biovore, hurling masses of huge spore mines and parasitic projectiles with terrifying force. Its payloads adapt to its tactical needs, launching specific mixtures of acidic or toxic ordnance tailored to overcome specific defenses. The Dominatrix is a rare but supremely potent Synapse Biotitan. It possesses heightened intelligence and a psychic link to the hive mind that galvanizes lesser Tyranid organisms. This makes it a prime target for enemy forces, but they'll find that it's not without its defenses. The Dominatrix has bioplasma emitters, immense claws, and the ability to call forth any reinforcement it wants from the myriad of Tyranid bioforms. Behind the scenes, they coordinate swarms with uncanny efficiency, transforming the battlefield into a lethal, unified organism. Destroying a Dominatrix will, without a doubt, severely disrupt a Tyranid offensive, but doing so demands unbelievable firepower. Tyranid Biotitans are living cataclysms, unstoppable engines of predation that reduce worlds to biomass and challenge even the mightiest war machines the galaxy can muster. They are the Great Devourer, and the galaxy knows to fear them.